The Immigration Reform Law Institute has a new investigation out, and I'm joined again by Jason Hopkins, one of our investigators. And Jason, it seems like another show, another Washington, D.C. area county behaving badly as relates to cooperation with ICE. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the area around Washington, D.C., it's really just been a hotbed for these sanctuary policies. So, yeah, and on that note, Fairfax County, located in Northern Virginia, is one of those places. And there have been stories out, it's kind of known everywhere that Fairfax County does not cooperate with ICE, at least not anymore. So we decided to look into it. And we had asked Fairfax, the Fairfax Sheriff's Department, what kind of warrants they're getting from ICE and how they're cooperating and everything like that. To break the numbers down for us here, they were able to let us know that from May 2018 to May 2020, so just shy of 2 years, they received 929 ICE warrants. And these are detainer warrants for individuals that are in the sheriff's custody, you know, Fairfax County custody that ICE is looking for, and they, you know, asking them to hand them over once they're released. Of those 929, only 14 were deemed lawfully issued detainers. And this is deemed by Fairfax and what their definition of a lawfully issued detainer is. So that leaves 915 detainers that were deemed ineligible, not good enough. Who knows how many of those individuals were released back into custody or back into the public, what crimes they were committing. But it just shows you, just shy of 2 years, you have, you know, over 900, close to 1,000 detainers that are just being ignored. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of illegal aliens, criminal aliens that are potentially being released back into the public because Fairfax does not want to cooperate with ICE.
Okay, so your average American citizen hearing this, they may not be familiar with what's a detainer request or anything like that. Why does this matter, and how does this affect the community?
Right. And just to explain to somebody here, so say someone is arrested for a local crime, you know, locally, they're arrested for a DUI. They're booked in, they're processed at whatever county jail. And it turns out this person is not only a non-citizen, but living here illegally. I mean, their information is getting shared with the FBI and then eventually up to ICE. Once that information is pinged over to ICE and they see, oh, this person is living here illegally, unlawfully, we've been looking for this individual to apprehend them, they will send over what's called a detainer request over to that law enforcement agency that arrested them, asking them to hold on to them for, in a detainer request asks for them to hold on for no longer than 48 hours, for them to get over there and make an apprehension. And these things are, it's best to do this apprehension over at a law enforcement agent, at a detention center, because it's a safe, you know, the person's not armed. It's better than having to go out into the community. You never know what's there. You know, it prevents collateral arrests as well. So this is safe for all parties involved. And that's what they do, and it's an effective way to apprehend and take custody of criminally illegal aliens across the country. And it's important for the public to understand this. I mean, because this is a staple way for ICE to do its job and apprehend criminal aliens across the country and do what they've been mandated to do as far as their job roles go.
Now, in the investigation report, which you can see in its entirety at early.org right there, you explain in there how Fairfax County is one of the reasons they are declining so many requests is because they're setting this standard that a criminal warrant is required, where in many other jurisdictions only an administrative warrant is required. What's the difference between those two, and what is the rationale behind Fairfax demanding this?
Right. So this is getting into the weeds of the immigration debate here. And for what people need to understand is immigration is a civil matter, right? If you were here, you're breaking immigration law, that's a civil infraction, right? So when ICE issues a detainer, it's an administrative warrant, right? And typically, you know, let's back up a second here. They have a congressional mandate to issue these. An ICE officer can issue a ICE detainer warrant. It's a civil administration warrant, and that's their duty to do that. But now what we see here are sanctuary counties that are asking for criminal warrants to go along with these things, saying, well, this wasn't signed, and it needs to be signed by a judge. That's what they're asking for, is a warrant to be signed by a judge, even though by law, ICE detainer warrants do not require that. But sanctuary leaders, they know this and they understand that, and they know it's much tougher to get a criminal warrant signed by a judge, and that's why they're asking that, because it makes it that much harder for ICE to do their job. And frankly, you're really not able to do that unless an alien has committed an additional felony, some sort of heinous crime that would require the DOJ, so to speak, to get involved, and where you're able to get that warrant signed by a judge. So it just creates that many more hurdles, and it makes it so there's so many fewer aliens that ICE is able to actually apprehend at detention centers.
So what has been the protocol up until now? We're seeing these criminal warrants being required. Has it been the case that administrative warrants were sufficient? And do we have any idea how many counties are satisfied with just an administrative warrant?
For years and years, this was acceptable by local law enforcement agencies around the U.S., that they would accept an ICE civil detainer was completely acceptable. But now we're seeing this, very hyper-partisan age, and the immigration debate is becoming politicized. And so you're seeing a growing number of jurisdictions that are announcing and mandating that, no, we also want a judge's signature on that. We want a criminal warrant to be accompanied by this, knowing full well that because they're opponents of ICE, they're opponents of immigration enforcement, and they know this inhibits their job. So this is a hurdle for ICE to do its job.
I think it's important to note that Fairfax County does not officially consider themselves a sanctuary county, and yet they are doing this. So why would a county that denies they're a sanctuary county raise the bar in essence to require this extra obstacle for ICE to overcome?
I would argue that they know that sanctuary has become a dirty word, right? I mean, you're seeing in sanctuary counties and jurisdictions where aliens who've been repeatedly arrested and let go have gone on to be arrested for more heinous crimes. I mean, as far murder, rape, other gross charges. So sanctuary has become a bit of a dirty word. So you see places like Fairfax, you can even argue Montgomery County, Maryland, that are, de facto sanctuary counties. They don't outwardly call themselves sanctuary, but for every intent and purposes, I mean, they are sanctuary because they're implementing policies that keep ICE from doing their job effectively.
Going on what you said there, it sounds like these counties, they don't want the blowback for being officially designated a sanctuary county, but yet they're resorting to these sort of tricks to be a de facto sanctuary county. We talked last time about how Montgomery County is giving these incredibly short release notices to ICE, therefore making it very difficult for them to pick up these criminal aliens. Are there any other tactics you're aware of that some of these quasi-sanctuary counties are using to avoid cooperation?
Oh yes, any sort of way to keep ICE from actually apprehending illegal aliens and criminally illegal aliens. As the example you brought up in Montgomery County, we did an investigation there where after so much blowback, they finally decided, they announced that, okay, all right, we will cooperate with ICE a little bit more. Our investigation found that although they were notifying ICE of impending releases of aliens, they were giving them a notification heads up that was basically impossible to comply with, right? In one case, under 30 minutes time. There's no way for an ICE agent to respond to that notification, get down there in time, make an apprehension. And you see that in Fairfax as well. One of the reasons we decided to look into them, because they've implemented 2 separate sanctuary orders in the last 2 years. The first one in 2018, they announced they wouldn't even honor what we've been discussing, ICE detainers, not without a criminal warrant, a judge's signature involved. And then they've been doubling down. Just recently, their latest order, they announced they're not going to allow ICE agents into government offices and buildings, right? So they couldn't even be around, the property around a detention center. So these are just other ways to keep ICE from doing their duties and actually enforcing immigration law. Instead of actually getting Congress members to change the law, they're simply trying to make it harder for ICE to do its congressionally mandated job.
Now, the other tragedy in all this is that I'm sure there are residents of Fairfax County that have no idea that any of this is going on. And when they're hearing about this, that they're probably going to be alarmed because it affects their safety and the safety of their families. What can these people do? I mean, we've seen that these politicians have kind of a tin ear when these residents come to them. What can people do? The average Fairfax resident saying, "I'm appalled by this. What do I do?" What can we offer them?
As simple as it may sound, they really just need to keep an eye on. They need to understand these laws that are being passed. I mean, even over here, as someone who focuses on immigration issues, I mean, I really had to go into the weeds to figure out what Fairfax was doing. I mean, another example of the newest order that they just passed, they're actually encouraging officers to release aliens on summonses rather than booking them, arresting them. Just another way to keep them off ICE's radar. I mean, so, and this is something you really have to read into to find. So for citizens that live in Fairfax County, they need to keep their eyes open, and they need to be paying attention to what's being passed by the sheriff's office, by their county government, and let them know how they feel. I mean, right? They need to let them know that we support our local officers cooperating with their federal partners, including ICE, including the Department of Homeland Security. Because right now we have so many organizations that are mobilized on the other side of the debate who don't want any sort of cooperation with ICE. And these leaders need to know that there are a monumental number of people in the public who support that other side, who want their communities to be safe. They want, and we're not just talking about any illegal aliens. I mean, we're talking about people who've been, they've been arrested by local agents. I mean, right? So, these are people who've been involved in crimes. They're not, they're not safe people necessarily. So they want their communities to be safe, and they need to express that.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to search in a place like the Washington Post to find the details on this story, I'll save you some time. It's not in there because they don't report on these things, because they don't want to, because they're driven by their agenda. It's organizations like Early that do this investigating that Jason is doing, and the people there to dig up these things, because there are a lot of media entities that just will not report on it, don't want to report on it. So Early is an organization that is worth your time, your support, your efforts. So go to early.org, hit the like and subscribe button on this page so you can get this content. The investigations department has a full docket. We were talking, Jason, earlier today, you guys have investigations lined up for a while. So this is not the end of this thing. These stories are all over the place. Early is uncovering them. So you need to tune in to these podcasts. You need to go to early.org. You need to support Early. Otherwise, these stories are going to get buried and no one's going to hear about them. So Jason, I want to thank you again for your time. Great stuff. We will talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.